And it's live.
All right.
Welcome to the Timmy Gibson Show. I say the same thing every time on every video I do. Timmy Gibson, former evangelical, fundamental, Bible thumping, tongue talking, spirit filled preacher. Woo! One of my dear friends, Kyle. And dude, I'm so glad that you're going to be on the show because we went to the same Bible college together. Well,
yeah,
not together. I'm quite a bit older than you.
Just a few years. I mean.
That's right. I'm just a mere 30-something.
Yeah. Right. People will think I'm in my 30s. I think I'm in my 40s,
For real though, dude, seriously, I appreciate you coming on to talk. Our last video, I think it's over 2,000 views and people really appreciated it. And they don't want to hear from me all the time. But you know, the channel's really been growing, which, you know, thank you to all of you that listen, support, and, you know, my Patreon. Goodness gracious. It's just, I didn't plan on this happening. I really didn't. You know, I've been podcasting, if you will. I was on Spotify for a long time, just doing audio. Kyle, of course, was on that many times. And, I think maybe the most listens I ever had on videos were around 1,000, which is not bad. I mean, it's nothing to laugh at, but YouTube is just where it's at. You know, people, I guess, want to see our faces. You know, I always thought I had a face for radio, but maybe I can do a little bit of video too. I don't know. I was always, you know, I always had because I was a preacher, right? So I could talk, and I thought audio only made the most sense. But I guess videos is helpful too. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here for the conversation. Thank you, Kyle, for coming on here to chat with me about how to talk to religious people. Yeah. You know, that's the, you know, we're heading into the holidays here. You know, we're in October, and next month is November. Can you believe that?
It's flying by for sure.
For real. So yeah, we've got Thanksgiving coming up first. Is it the last weekend in November this year?
I believe it is. Yeah.
I think it is. Sorry, I had to spit something out. Yeah, then Christmas and then New Year's. And so, you know, people are going to be around a lot of their family members who are Christian and a lot of their friends that are Christian, and not to mention just the holidays themselves seem to elicit a religious vibe, you know, clearly for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I remember as a pastor, this was the time, like this was the time of year, you know, Advent season, the season of Advent. Even though I was a Pentecostal pastor, or an evangelical pastor rather, I did lean into Advent and things like that, just because I thought there was some value in the liturgy and in that as you approach, you know, these different seasons and all that kind of stuff. Did you ever celebrate that stuff at all?
I never did the liturgy, or not really. I mean, I think we took communion on Christmas. That was about it. Okay,
so shook my board. So yeah, because as evangelicals, that's something that's different. You know, there's a lot of people that listen to the show and watch the show that you know, they don't come from the wacky what we came from, you know?
Yeah.
And I do call it wacky. You know, I'm an insider. Now I'm an outsider, I guess. But, you know, I was an insider. So, you know, I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to make fun of, of the circles that I was in, and was not only a participant in, I was a leader, you know. Didn't have a giant church, but 300 people is not bad. I mean, it was my full-time career. You know, I did it, like I say, every time. You know, I did that for 30 years. And it's some funny, I don't know who it was, but someone made a comment and they're trying to add up the math and figure things out. I'm like, dude, 1989, I became a youth pastor. You know, I had to like spell it all out that like 40 years evangelical. I'm 55. I know I don't look 55, I guess, but you know, I have been in this a long, long time. And it's still so fresh. Is it fresh for you too? Like a lot of this stuff is so fresh.
Yeah, you know, it's a weird feeling in the sense that it feels like I've been a non-believer for forever, but also I almost feel like, you know, it was also still just yesterday at the same time of I was immersed in this, you know, I'm back in the same city that our school was in, you know, I drive by it every now and then. And, you know, so all those memories and feelings are still there, you know, and it's like, oh yeah, it's almost like a separate life in a way.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why you and I connect so well. You know, if people don't know the story, I'll briefly just mention it. So Kyle here, I met him. Wow. Was that 2 years ago now?
I believe it was
first met you.
2021, maybe late 2021.
Okay. So yeah, it's been a couple years. 3 years. Wow. So you must have booked your wedding way in advance. Kudos to you. Do you know I'm still getting calls for October weddings?
That's crazy.
I know. I'm like, dude, like, why didn't we plan ahead? Anyway, so yeah, you and your beautiful wife came and sat down for the very first time to meet me to officiate your wedding. And as soon as I met you and we started kind of chatting, I was like, I'm probably going to be friends with this guy. Yeah. And, you know, I meet a lot of people. I do a lot of weddings and meet a lot of wonderful people that I probably could be friends with. But you and I just had this special, unique connection, I think, because we went to the same Bible college and had left our respective religions, our faith. And for me, it started in 2019, you know, is when it started. Just like your journey. I mean, really, it maybe started way earlier when I started having those little doubts and little, you know, like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how could that be even true? You know, how is that even possible? And I was done saying, well, the mysteries belong to the Lord, you know, and putting all that magic spell stuff into it. And which is so funny, right? That Christians are so the other day. So for fun, right? For fun. My wife loves tarot, and she's a real good, like, she likes to, when we have people over, she'll say, okay, grab a tarot card, you know, and she loves to do that. And I love to do it. But, you know, I don't, how can I say this? I don't believe in the mystical stuff like that anymore. Right. So it's fun. And so, like, I'm like, yeah, let me pull a card, you know, tell me, you know, like, I love it. Like, it's fun. Right. It's almost like I view it. It's no harm, right? Like, it's no harm. Right. And I think part of confession, everybody, my friend of mine, I just have to say this because I just, you know, I'm always authentic and genuine on the show, and I'm not paid by these people. I know I'm probably going to get some comments about this, but just the other day, a friend of mine let me try these little Zens, and wow, that's what I have in my lip right now because I was a little bit scattered today. So my daughter's in town, and the grandbaby's in town, and he's almost 2, like a month from 2. And he's 2, and he's a boy, and he likes to wrestle and likes to literally, our house is not, my wife and I the house is not childproof at all. And so, and I'm a perfectionist. I like things really nice and clean. My wife is also a perfectionist. We like things really clean. And so when he comes over, you know, we're taking stuff,
disaster.
Hiding the remote controls, hiding this, doing this, like putting plants up, and, you know, trying to rearrange our lives for the grandbaby. And someone told me about these, and they said, you ought to try it. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And they said, but don't swallow it because it could make your tummy hurt. And I'm like, okay. So I tried it, and man, there's something about that. And by the way, I don't promote this stuff. I really don't. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm just trying it for the last little bit here and to see how it works. But I noticed a little bit of a nicotine because I don't smoke. No way. I'm too much of a health freak. But on the package, it says, warning, this contains nicotine. Nicotine's addictive, but apparently it's not going to kill me tomorrow like smoking would. So I'm not a smoker, but I'm like, I'll try a little nicotine and see what happens, you know? And honestly, I watched some videos before. Here's how weird I am. I watched a bunch of videos. I know we're off topic, people. We'll get back. Don't worry. But this is how you're going to get to know your host here more by me telling you all my little secrets here. So I'm a big health nut. And I don't even like taking aspirin. Well, then I watched a video. I'm a big coffee drinker. And so I watched videos on the addictive natures of, caffeine. And there was this one video that popped up. Caffeine is worse than nicotine. And I was like, what? Hold the phone. Like, what? And man, I got the sun coming in, putting those dots on me. And I was like, oh man, really? Caffeine's worse than nicotine? I'm like, okay, well then I don't feel bad about trying a little nicotine then. Since I drink so much coffee.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so that's my confession. I've got a Zen pouch in here to help me focus. Apparently it's not working yet. And anyway, I don't know what I was saying with that, where I was going, but yeah, so that's why I keep spitting is I don't want to swallow it. But you know what I did notice? I'm now starting to feel a little bit of the head rush. But it helps, whenever the 2-year-old comes over, the grandbaby, my friend was like, yeah, just go get you some Zen, man. Pop a Zen and it'll help you. So like when they're coming over, I pop a Zen, and it does just kind of, I don't know. It does do an endorphin, some kind of a dopamine.
Yeah,
really.
caffeine or not caffeine. Nicotine definitely gives you a little bit of a buzz.
It does. Like it does something. And, I'm not even a drinker. That's another thing that, again, this is just confession time. Where's my rosary beads? I am such a health nut. I don't take any drugs. I'm 55. I'm lucky, right? I can't give this credit to God anymore like I used to when I was a pastor. I'm like, God's me. I'm 50, years old. And I don't take any medication. Well, now I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in God. Agnostic, atheist as it relates to the Bible God. And I luckily, I'm just super healthy. I don't know how and why. It's just, I guess, genetics. I don't know. But I also eat really healthy. I was a vegetarian for 12 years. And I think that might have helped. That was during my critical years, like 20. Let's see. I was a vegetarian starting in, I think I was 25, 26. And then I was literally a vegetarian until I was 36, 37.
Oh, damn, you were a vegetarian for a while.
Yeah, for 12 years. And so I didn't want to give. Then I just, anytime I was out and about, and I would like smell bacon. I was like, I kind of miss bacon, And then the first meat product that I had coming off of vegetarianism for 12 years was a filet mignon. And that I was like, I have to have meat now. And I was super skinny. I weigh about I weighed myself the other day. I think I'm like 177, 178 is what I weigh. And I was weighing back when I was a vegetarian. I was like 140, 145. And
that's probably not great for someone your size.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 5'11", just shy of 6 foot. With shoes on, I'm 6 foot. And so, yeah, I was just skinny, skinny, skinny. And honestly, as weird as this might sound to people, I just didn't feel strong, as a guy. This is just me being just very vulnerable here. I felt just so scrawny. Man, I wonder when those lights are going to get off my face. I'm going to see if I can fix that. Sorry, folks. Oh, it's just going to happen because it's that time of the year and the time that we're recording is just going to, that's what it is. Let's see if I can. Nope. That's even better. How about that? Anyway, so it doesn't matter. None of that matters. They want to hear the content. Okay. So we're getting ready to go to the holidays. How do you, Kyle, deal with those Christians that, clearly our group, they think we're lost. I mean, read the comments. There'll be crazy comments even on this video.
For sure. Yeah.
People, I get emails. Kyle, dude, I get emails. I've had DMs. I had a package come to my house.
Someone sent you mail?
Someone sent me a book.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that they said I should read. They said, please. It was entitled, it's in the little note. It said, please, Timmy, for the love of God, read this. You're wrong. You're death, your soul is in the balance. And,
Yeah.
you know, and on one hand, I get it. I get what they're thinking. But also my wife was like, when I got that package, she goes, that's just weird. She goes, that is just weird that they're forcing their beliefs. Their beliefs are right, and they're forcing their beliefs on you to get you saved or resaved, or, you know, because I'm backslidden right now. And, you know, my wife she's very spiritual, and we have a wonderful, you know, I support her in her spiritual journey, and she's just a precious, kind. My wife I literally got so lucky. I can't even tell you. I literally could do a whole podcast about how lucky I have been to have met and be with my wife. And she's very spiritual, like very, yet she's not fundamental, right, Kyle? You know what I mean? It's like she doesn't think that her beliefs need to be my beliefs. And that's how and why it works. Because when you're evangelical, that's the problem, is that you're right, everyone else is wrong. As an agnostic, where I'm at is, no, I don't believe in God. But you don't have to not believe in God like me. Is that how you feel? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I'm an atheist, but I don't really care what other people believe as long as they're respectful, you know, like that's
right.
the big thing for me. And, you know, going into the holidays and also being down here on the Bible Belt, and most of my, I guess you could say, like, social support structure, you know, that's largely Christian because it's all my friends from Bible college,
right,
that I still hang out with. But, you know, I think the big thing for me in terms of, like, specifically relationships is there's got to be that mutual respect there. And if you're constantly just trying to hound me with your belief, like, at a certain point, it's just, I understand that you don't agree with my viewpoint and I don't agree with yours. But what you're doing right now, it's not convincing me to become a Christian.
Right.
And if I can't have, and thankfully with all of my CBC buddies that I'm still in contact with, they're not one of those that are just going to like sit there and try to drill. I've been able to hang out with them and not really change who I, you know, nothing's really changed since I came out as an atheist, thankfully.
Because you had other interests that were similar already. So,
yeah. Well, and they're also not the types of people, like, two of them are really into dinosaurs, right? I'm into dinosaurs. So I'll send them articles about that. And there's never like a debate about, well, the Earth's only 6,000 years old, or, you know, the devil put them in the ground or anything, you know. So it's very much the type of Christians they are too, in the sense of we can just talk about cool stuff and it not be tangentially related to, you know, some argument that Christians have. You know, I think it's almost just kind of a personality type for some people, because they do it with there are people who do it with politics all the time, where,
oh brother,
somehow it always gets brought up and then they just have this really aggressive opinion about it. And you're like, okay, I don't know what to tell. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is not a conversation. This is you just shouting. So
yeah. Well, and like you and I think that's another thing that you and I connected on so deeply is, like, let's just pop onto politics just for a second. I have friends who are voting for Trump, and I have friends who are voting for Harris.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you have your reasons and for who you're voting for, and okay, you know, like, let's go play tennis. Like, let's go play Frisbee golf. Like, okay.
Life, like,
yeah. And so I do kind of feel that there is that particular group, because clearly, right, not all Christians are the same. Mm-hmm. Some are absolutely wacky, typically the group we came out of, and some are Christian, but yet they believe the earth is ancient, you know, 13.5 billion years, whatever this thing is. And you know, they don't believe that dinosaur bones were put here by the devil. And, you know, they don't believe that Noah probably had two of every animal on the ship, you know, on the ark, which is where you and I differ, because as an evangelical, right, there are those fundamental facts. And I'm going to do a video about this later. All the crazy, nutty things that I believed as an evangelical. If you have evangelical or Pentecostal, and what that would be like a Baptist, Assemblies of God, Nazarene, a lot of them are big on the Bible is literally true.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it's literally not true. The wisdom from the Bible is what man knew 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, just read it. It's very, when you read it, when you really read it with a critical mind or just an honest mind, it's written by ancient people that had a very limited understanding about so many things. And that's where you and I differ, because I was a literalist. The Bible's literally true, every jot and tittle. Whereas you were already an ancient earth evolution guy as an evangelical, which is wild.
Yeah, I believed, I think, in what they called the age day theory. So it wasn't a literal 7 days. It was, you know, something much longer. I didn't really know how to balance out a lot of it. I just knew that I saw science. It seemed to be true, but I still had faith. And so I'm like, even if this doesn't line up, I still have faith that God can make it make sense, was kind of my big statement a lot of times, because it didn't always make sense. But I think at a certain point, it just got to, there's a lot of things that just don't make sense, you know?
Yeah. So you allowed for it in your theological view, whereas I didn't. I mean, I didn't allow for that. I remember so many sermons that I preached where I made fun of evolution, and I knew nothing about it, but I would make fun of evolution. I would especially make fun of, you know, coming from that whole, you know, I don't come from a monkey. If an atheist wants to come from a monkey, that's fine. The reality is we're all monkeys.
Yeah. Well,
Or are we great apes? What is
all
it?
apes, all primates. I mean, that's
primates.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that would include monkeys. But.
Yeah. And it didn't make sense to me. Well, you know what? I think when you and I first started talking, I was still wrestling with that. I think, because I remember I talked to you a lot about it, because I just didn't understand it. And that's another thing about Christians, is if they don't understand it, then it just doesn't make sense and it's not true. You know, I can't understand how we come from a single cell and how over, you know, like I couldn't it did not compute in my brain. And since it didn't compute in my brain, well, then it's just not true.
Yeah.
But it made more sense, and it did compute in my brain. God did it. That's how it happened. God did it.
Yeah. I have a friend who's actually more considering theistic evolution as a very big possibility. But every now and then he'll be like, how do you explain this through evolution? Or how do you explain this through evolution? And it'll be something crazy. Like, I think he sent me a video once of like pufferfish making this giant mural to attract mates. And he's like, how does evolution do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, you know, there's multiple steps. I don't necessarily have an answer. I'm not a marine biologist. You know, there are people you probably ask, and it's just, he's always kind of looking for the angle on which you can say, well, can't explain everything. So God, you know, like
God of the gaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The God of the gaps argument, where if we don't have an answer for something, then it must be God. But we don't have any more proof for God than we have proof for the gap that we're trying to, you know, explain.
Sure.
Honestly, may not even be a gap. It's just a gap in my own personal knowledge a lot of times.
Right. It's a gap in my own brain.
Yeah. Like, I don't know all the answers. I'm just, you know, it generally makes sense to me. And I've seen some.
I'm not a biologist.
Yeah. That'd be cool, but they don't get paid anything. So.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely the bigger piece for me, even as not now, but I would say probably as recent as 3 years ago, about the time we met, I would watch a creationist debate an evolutionist. And there were times I was like, well, the creation makes more sense to me, because that's all I've ever known. So it's like, it sounded like, well, yeah. But then now I watch those debates, and my mind just goes, like, what? Like, you have God.
They have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah. It's just literally something they're pulling out of their butthole. Yeah. You know, it's like, so Nehemiah chapter 2 says what? And that means that's true, you know? Yeah, it took me a minute. It definitely took me a minute. I even watched one the other day, and I found myself saying, wow, okay, this evangelical Christian worldview, when it comes to biology and understanding the universe, and it just doesn't, the creation doesn't make any sense at all to me now. But goodness gracious, it took me a while to get there. So how did you navigate as you began to deconvert and your friends were staying Christian? How did those conversations, how did you navigate that? And did you have to ever say, hey, listen, let's just not talk about that. Let's go back to Dungeons and Dragons? Or
Yeah. Well, for like the first year that I wasn't a believer, I didn't say anything.
Oh, you kept it to yourself?
Yeah, I kept it to myself for a while. Actually, maybe almost 2 years now that I think about it, because I think I officially kind of identified myself as, I'd say late 2018, I was kind of in that agnostic territory. And then by early 2019, I was kind of at the point where I was like, I don't really, I still called myself an agnostic, but I was really an atheist. I was fairly certain, I guess, at that point. But, and then I don't think I told them until during COVID. So yeah, it was pretty close. Maybe late 2019, early 2020. But yeah.
What made you come out? Like, what made you finally realize I can't just keep living in the closet here?
I felt dishonest. And also there was a bit more security because.
Wait, you felt dishonest?
Yeah.
But you're atheist, bro. You don't have morals.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing, I felt like and that made me feel guilty. And we still do have a conscience, as it turns out. So
yeah,
don't feel like, I felt like, yeah, just kind of, I don't know if I was necessarily feeling like I had betrayed my friends, but we'd always been open and transparent with one another. We're very close, so to keep that a secret for as long as I did sucked, but also, I was living with my girlfriend at the time, Brittany, who we married. And then of course,
living in sin.
Yeah. We were also hooking up before that point. And, so it was,
which is true.
I was also working at the Assemblies of God national office. So if it came out that I was no longer a believer, I could have gotten axed right there. So, I mean, there was a couple other reasons why I didn't want to blow up my whole life, because I could lose my job and just some other things that were just, I didn't want to deal with. But yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, I understood that they were going to be sad, right? They believe in hell. They believe that this is a lost and dying world. They're saddened. They believe God is saddened by it too. There is that weird sort of disconnect because he's the one doing it, but it doesn't fire that way when you're a Christian usually. But there weren't really any fights. There weren't any arguments from my core friend group. When I kind of made it sort of, I guess you could say, Facebook official, that's when I got some messages from people that were interesting. One message from someone pissed off that I had given away my purity because I guess they had found out that I had sex. Another message from someone saying, to the effect of, well, you know what this means for you. Like, it was not even really like a conversation or anything. It was just like, you're going to burn in hell now. You made that decision. So it was just this weird, they were annoyed, angry almost, and I don't know. But with my core friend group, and the reason that they're still my core friend group, and the reason they were my friend group coming out of college, was just because we could disagree about things, and a lot of us became friends through various, theological debates or political debates, as people do in college. Like you're arguing with people all the time. That's fun. It was for me.
You were into apologetics even as a Christian.
I was, yeah. Yeah, I apologize for that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, everybody.
That wasn't a good joke. Yeah, I liked to debate. And so, I think we've had some thought-provoking conversations, and I don't have any, I don't mind talking about spirituality or Christianity or why I don't believe. And, I think the thing is that we can disagree. We may not even respect each other's beliefs, but I think at the end of the day, we respect each other enough as individuals. And that was, I think, the really important thing. Because if they didn't, yeah, we wouldn't be able to maintain that friendship, I don't think, you know?
Yeah.
And I think also younger Christianity, maybe newer Christianity, I think they're getting to the point, they're being a little more culturally aware a bit that, you know, the whole just trying to shove Christian, you know, Jesus down someone's throat, it's not really effective. It just kind of pisses them off, you know? So they tend to kind of cringe at those types of people too.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a friend who caused the church split because he largely pissed off those types of people and they left the church. So, you know, I think they're a little more aware about that, and they're not like and also I was in Bible college with them, right? They know that I know all the same things they did. I've got the same degree or a similar degree.
Yeah.
So I think they at least respect that. But, you know, people that aren't willing to just, I don't know, see you for all that you are and just want to see you as one thing and then just be like turn or burn.
Yeah.
That's a tough one, especially if they're like immediate family. I think I saw on your page that someone had told their spouse and their spouse told their kid, and now neither of them were talking to them. And it's just,
that's so unchristian.
Horrible. Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, it's horrible. And now he feels entirely, you know, disconnected from his family. I don't know.
I always think to that one scripture, you know, love your enemies.
Yeah.
You know, do good to those who curse you. It's so interesting to see Christians not practice that. Like, because technically we would be the enemy, right? To an evangelical Christian. And man, I'll tell you what, those evangelical Christians, their love is associated with hate.
A lot of times it can be. Yeah. I mean, you know, I know a lot of really loving ones, but then, you know, I even went to school with a few who there's a reason we're not even friends. Like I don't know if you remember the whole, you can't listen to secular music thing.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of dying out while I was in college. And then I thought after I was in college, it was just done. But no, I pulled in because I was a security guard at CBC right after it closed. And I pulled into the lot listening to AC/DC. And one of my coworkers was just not happy about that. And it was just everything. Like, you know, Earth was 6,000 years old. I think, you know, the best president we had recently was George W. Bush. you know the type of person I'm talking about. Like, the militant, you know, just highly conservative Christian. And we were friends before we started working together. And then when I just kind of saw that side coming out of them, because they're dogmatic about everything, right?
Yeah.
If you've met those Christians where, you know, even when you're a Christian, they have their interpretation of the Bible. And if you don't agree with that interpretation, you're burning in hell for all. And he was maybe not to that intensity, but he was just a skosh down. So
he was knocking on the door.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have those types. And yeah, I think the best thing, if you have to like interact with them, especially if they're in your family, is to just have a little sit down and say, hey, if we're going to continue functioning and having any sort of relationship, you got to stop, because I'm not just going to continue to subject myself to this over and over again.
Yeah.
You know, I love you. I care about you. If that's if you have a loving relationship with that person, but you know, you're not getting anywhere with this. It's just, I don't even feel like I can have a normal relationship with you anymore.
Yeah.
This is the focus. That's what I would probably say to at least a family member, because you usually have to kind of associate with them. But even with friends, if I'm really, you know, if I want to maintain that friendship with somebody, then, you know, doing what I can to set boundaries to preserve that friendship is probably the route I would go.
Sure. And I remember as an evangelical, when I was hyper Christian, I would debate or post comments on atheist YouTube videos, right?
Yeah.
Now, as an agnostic atheist, I don't watch Christian videos and fight with people like that. I obviously spread my message of where I'm at and tell my story, and I'm doing what I'm doing, but this is my channel, right? So I'm saying what I think and how I view the world and my perspective and all of that. but I'm not a evangelist. I'm not trying to convert anyone. If you're a Christian, stay a Christian then. Like I'm talking to all those who, like me and like you, are having questions and doubts or are on a deconstruction journey or are agnostic and or atheist.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I'm talking to. You know, I'm looking for that like-minded, hey, I'm sharing my journey. And I would say maybe it's not 90, maybe it's 80%, but probably 90% of the comments I get are very positive. Even some Christians will say, hey, you know, I appreciate your authenticity. You seem very genuine. You know, and that's cool too. Like, I'll even say, thank you. I really appreciate you being what I would consider a true Christian and being kind and, you know, but you're speaking your truth and that's okay too. Like, hey, it's a free country and I don't delete comments for the most part. Now, some people, when they're nasty and they, you know, they're trolls, obviously I will delete some of those. Yeah. But really, there's a lot of read the comments. There's some even hateful ones that I just go ahead and leave it up because it just makes them look terrible. Like, I'm going to leave that comment up because they just look like a douchebag now. Yeah. And who's attracted to that? And so for me now, as an agnostic atheist, I'm not trying to convert Christians, but goodness gracious, the Christians are still trying to convert me. And it is like what you said a minute. It's just so disrespectful. It's like, man, do you not have any social wherewithal? I mean, I, like you, still have Christian friends and they'll say things that in my mind, I'm just like rolling my eyes going, oh, brother, like, that's just so ridiculous. I don't say that though.
Yeah.
You know, I don't say that. They have a right to believe the earth is 6,000 years old. They have a right to believe that Jesus is coming back. I mean, whatever. Like, you can believe that. I mean, I find it just completely goofy, but I don't say that. Now, I say it here because it's my channel. I can do that. Mm-hmm. But I don't say that to other Christians on YouTube. And I really don't even do it to when people make comments. I'll usually, sometimes depending, I'll make one comment, maybe, but a lot of times I'm just like, okay, that you said what you think. Thanks. Sometimes I'll just say, hey, thanks for your comment. Thanks for sharing your perspective. Yeah. You know, I appreciate it, whatever. But that's the thing that's so different. Like me heading into the holidays, I still have, most of my family is very Christian. Mm-hmm. And especially my parents, they know where I'm at and what I believe. And they'll still say things, you know, and that's what they believe. And I think I'm far enough out now and I have enough. I've read enough. I've studied enough. I've done my research. I've done my due diligence and, you know, and still study the Bible, you know, and in a totally different way now. So I saw a meme the other day that said something about atheists seem to read their Bibles and know more about the Bible than Christians do, which as a former pastor, Christians ain't reading the Bible for the most part. You know, they're not reading that Bible, you know.
That's why the pastor went to Bible college to tell them all about it. Yeah.
and I know you were like this. When I was a Christian, I not only read the Bible, I prayed every day for all my friends, for my family, for my kids, for, you know what I mean? Like I was genuinely, sincerely in it, you know, like I tried my darndest to do all of that. Yeah. So it's very fascinating. I was going to tell you a little story. I think this is interesting because how I met you through weddings. I just met with a couple actually just yesterday. And I was giving them my spiel, you know, and I usually give just a light spiel. Like I don't say I'm agnostic atheist. I just say, you know, I used to be a pastor for 30 years and I walked away from that. You know, I do weddings full time. And so I don't just get into it much. Well, interestingly enough, I said, well, why are you guys looking to hire me? Cause I could tell the way they were talking. I'm like, oh, okay. They're Christian, which is fine. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And dude, they had an officiant, their pastor, who found out they were living together and said, I can't
do it.
condone this. I can't officiate your wedding if you're going to live together. And I'm just like, which is weird because he didn't say I can't do your wedding because you're sleeping with her. Or because you're sleeping together. I can't do your wedding because you live together.
Yeah.
So they could live separate and still be sleeping together, but they're not living together. It's the appearance of evil. Isn't that? I find that hypocritical and just weird.
Yeah. I remember those rules as, I was going to be an AG pastor. There were certain people you couldn't marry.
Right.
And I remember thinking that's kind of wild. And they also had to be Christian, right? So I don't think that I could marry two people that weren't already saved as an AG pastor. That could be wrong. I don't know. But I did hear an interesting perspective about that very situation that you laid out from one of my pastors, though, was that he always married people who were living together, because if marriage was what allowed you to have sex without sin, he was like, well, then let's get this underway so you're actually not in sin. So that was kind of an interesting perspective, but I've definitely heard, a lot from that perspective too. And then of course, a lot of religious groups won't marry gay people or, things like that.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So,
well, of course. Yeah.
That's a given, I guess.
Yeah.
But
because that's an abomination.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, and I've said this in other podcasts or other videos on my show, my channel, that was something that got me in hot water with the evangelical group I was in, that my, overseers or where my ordination was through is, nope, you can't marry two men or two women. Like you can't do that. And I was like, yeah, but I'm going to, because I support gay marriage. I think it's beautiful. Love is love. Right. I mean, so that really got me in hot water. And eventually I had to walk away from that group. And this is back when I was still Christian, because I just brought homosexuality into the heterosexuality morality. Right. So one man with one man or one woman with one woman, but you can't be having sex until you're married as a gay couple. Like that was kind of my first heresy. my heretical beliefs that I was now condoning sin, which is funny, right? Because it's just, Christians are the most, especially those evangelicals, they're just so hypocritical. I remember I was in a prayer group one time, and in a prayer circle, all dudes, accountability group. And, the guys are talking about they're struggling with porn, and the other guy's struggling with, I sleep with my girlfriend sometimes and we feel bad about it. And we pray afterwards and ask God to forgive us, or, all that stuff. And then there was one guy in the group, and he just, we're all being vulnerable and authentic. And he said, I struggle with same-sex attractions, and I, kissed this guy the other day, and literally everybody but me was just like, and didn't want him in the group anymore.
Yeah, you're all confessing your sexual sins, which were unequal. Like, they stoned you to death for that shit too. Like,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is crazy that they had. Yeah, I mean, they've specifically, out of all the groups, there have been loads of churches that just specifically single out gay people. But there are a variety of different sins that we all participate in, and homosexuality was listed in a long list of sexual sins. Right, like,
but it was like bolded and came off the page for some reason.
Yeah, it was like, that's the one. Like, we're not going after incestuous relationships, bestiality. I mean, that's illegal. That's legal in several states, but gays, absolutely not.
Yeah,
two consenting adults, no, can't do that.
And also as a remembering those days as a pastor. I don't, and this is a confession of a pastor, right? A person that spent 30 years as an evangelical pastor. Kyle, I don't know if I ever had a conversation with a devoted follower of Jesus, a dude anyway, that didn't struggle with porn.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, they would judge everybody for drinking, for cussing, for smoking, but they themselves were struggling with porn. It was the weirdest thing. I as a relationship coach and as someone that I can't tell you the number of couples that come to my office and she brings up his porn addiction and they're at church every Sunday. They pray, they tithe, they do all the stuff. And there's this porn addiction.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm just like, wow. Christians have no moral standing to judge anyone because I'm not into porn. And I would tell, I'm authentic, right? I would tell you if I did. I mean, I'm not into it. It's just not my jam. I'm just not whatever. And weirdly, I can say that it seemed more attractive to me when I was an evangelical Christian. I can't explain it, guys. I'm just being honest here.
Well, I mean, it's you tell someone not to do something, it immediately makes
or do somebody.
Tell somebody not to do somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just makes that option more appealing. And then, you add any level of shame to sexuality and it's immediately kinky. So even just looking at porn probably, heightens that experience as an evangelical because you're not supposed to do it.
Yeah. It is, I guess it goes back to, it's a little bit of that hidden fruit thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or forbidden fruit.
Forbidden fruit. Yeah.
Forbidden fruit. Yeah. It's like you shouldn't do that. And that's the one thing you just can't get your mind off of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm experiencing that with my grandson. You tell him, hey, listen, you can play with all this, but like, don't touch this. That's where he goes.
That's the first thing he touches.
That's whatever we don't want him to touch. That's exactly what he wants to touch. And what we don't care that he plays with, he has no interest in that.
Yeah.
That's a very curious, just a human nature thing. And I guess now,
humanity.
right. I guess the mystique of porn for me, it just doesn't have that allure. One, I'm in a very happy, fulfilling marriage. And so,
well, that's the thing is you're not waiting until marriage either. So,
right.
I mean, you can't expect people to just be celibate through a lot of their reproductive years and not find ways to self-gratify. I mean, every year, I think they found dildos in the women's dorms at CBC. So, I mean, it wasn't even just a man. I mean, it's probably predominantly a male thing, but it's not just a male thing. We're all sexual creatures. You can't just deny that part of yourself and think that nothing's going to happen. Of course, things are going to happen. Of course, you're going to have some weird, ideas and mentality and feelings about it. I mean, people have talked about having flashbacks to porn that they've watched while having sex with their wives or something like that. And
yeah.
I've looked at porn. I am definitely not thinking about porn when I'm having sex with my wife. I don't. I'm thinking about her. Actually, I'm thinking about trying to catch my breath because I'm fat. But
yeah, trying to stay active here. That's another thing that is curious to me too, because I remember the shame that I felt just even for thinking, because as soon as I was pretty young and I was extremely interested in women. And especially, I remember I found a Playboy magazine in the woods. I hid that thing and went back every day,
This is the sketchiest place to find a Playboy.
I mean, I was just like, I couldn't wait after school, I'd walk through the woods and I'd find my hidden Playboy magazine. Me and my friends would just be like looking at it. And I remember as I became, once I reached the age of accountability, which is when you can clearly go to hell and it's your choice. And that's a joke, everybody. That's part of the evangelical thing. I'll do a video on that someday, the age of accountability, which is something that also Christians have pulled out of their buttholes. That's nowhere even in the Bible. Anyway, but I remember the shame and the guilt and the mental torment. This is why I think so many Christians have so many issues with anxiety and depression, and not all of it. Some of it's chemical, not all. I mean, I know atheists have that probably same struggle at times, but the world I came out of was just all evangelical Christians. So I remember the torment. And for me personally, Kyle, I remember feeling so tormented and even asking God, like, why do you make me want women? what is wrong with me? My mom reminded me of this. I remember as a young 14, 15, 16-year-old boy crying to my parents about, why did God make me like this? Why do I want to have sex with women, with my girlfriends? Like, what is wrong with me? I remember asking, what is wrong with me? And it was literally torture.
Yeah.
And I held out as long as I could. I was almost 18 and I finally gave in to the devil and had sex for the first time. And then clearly after that, it's all I could think about. It was just all I could ever think about.
Yeah.
And I'd do it. I'd feel guilty. I'd go to the altar. I'd cry my eyes out. I'd repent, ask God to forgive me. And then I'd do it again. And it was just this vicious cycle of guilt, shame, repentance, forgiveness, guilt, shame, forgiveness, repentance, just on and on and on. And I really believe there's a mental disorder there. Am I wrong? It's like it almost creates a mental trauma.
I mean, that's probably some type of trauma response. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but it doesn't sound healthy for sure that you're sitting there, beating yourself up for what is a natural desire,
Yeah.
I don't think that that's probably good for anyone's view on sex. I don't know. Maybe that contributes to some degree why we have as much porn viewage as we do.
Yeah. And did you know that this is a true story? You Google it, everybody. Look this up. They did some kind of research on porn use in hotels, which I don't know if they do that anymore, but they used to. You could go there and there were certain channels you could pay and, get the naughty stuff. Their porn viewage or porn money that came into the hotel was the highest when there was a Christian convention.
Ooh.
Fact. That's fact, everybody. I didn't pull that out of my butt. I don't have the research here on me. Maybe I can find it and put it in the description. The porn usage for the hotel was highest during Christian conventions.
I don't know if I'm surprised by that. I feel like, there's a lot of people doing it in the closet as a Christian because they got some unscratched itch, or they feel something about, their sex drive, and they just don't feel they can express it. And it definitely seems the more that you try to suppress something natural, the more it acts out, in my opinion. So
yeah, in an ugly way. I don't understand that. Because I'm not a psychologist either. So I don't understand what's exactly going on in the brain. And even like, some of the comments in my videos, I do think this way sometimes. Like I'll see someone just being an a-hole and trying to get me saved. And I'm thinking, I'd like to know. I'd like to search your computer. I'd like to see what you're up to, and I also don't know what that is. I don't know what that it's almost like it makes them feel better to appear as this righteous authority.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, just yet in their closet are mountains of skeletons.
Yeah.
Yet they think they can judge me for being an agnostic atheist. Yet they just masturbated before they made the comment on my my video.
Switching between browsers while they're commenting.
Yeah, there's another browser open.
Yeah,
it's like
right there.
That's very curious.
I think so. We did learn about coping mechanisms and like defense mechanisms in my mental health class, and I don't remember which one it is, but it definitely sounds like it is a defense mechanism. If you've got a lot of things going wrong in your life, well, if you can just focus on somebody, it's like almost averting the shame and guilt that you feel. So sort of projection in a way, but I don't think that was the correct term for this type of defense mechanism. So yeah, those angry people, I would strongly suspect those are the ones who've got things going on in their personal life. And that's been, how many outspoken, purity focused evangelical pastors, have you found out that were like in the new, like Jimmy Swaggart, you know, you got the whole thing with Hillsong United, you know, so I mean, it's everywhere. Yeah. Those most outspoken, angry, aggressive people with it, they're the ones doing stuff. Maybe not always, but it seems like a big part of the time.
Yeah. Have you heard about Ravi Zachariah? He's passed. Okay, so Ravi Zachariah, bro, is a famous global evangelist.
Yeah.
The evangelical church. Dude, he was also famous as an apologist, okay? Like this guy would debate people like us, right?
Yeah.
He died, and those that took over the ministry, his family, found out. This is all documented. It's all come out.
Mm-hmm.
This self-righteous, preached against all this stuff, had apartments all around the world that the ministry paid for, and he had women living in them, like younger women, who would give him sexual favors when he would come to a country to preach the gospel to get people saved and preach against immorality and sexual sin. He was going back to the apartment, sleeping with other women.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. Now, again, I'll readily admit that does not mean there is no God. Okay. That doesn't mean that there is no God, but that says something. Like it says something though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're kind of talking about all these documentaries that come out and you see all these just horrible, abusive things behind the scenes. Like it does seem like there is a sickness within the church itself, where there is a lot of abuse, and even the mental gymnastics you have to go through, they're not helpful to you. Your views on the world and reality and yourself, and this needing to suppress natural desires and things like that, they don't have a good long-term effect. And you look inside the church where it is the most, rules oriented, most strict, you're not finding the most mentally healthy people. You're finding a lot of angry people who are shoving stuff down your throat. And then you find a lot of people coming out that are, they have PTSD, they have depression, they have all these other issues from the abuse that they had faced in their church.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're hiding. And I can speak to this as a former evangelical Christian in that world. I remember having this conversation with one of my other evangelical Christian friends. I remember saying, this is exactly what I said. I remember saying, because my church kind of stalled out around 250 to 300 people. We were like in year three or four, and we were like 250, 300, Christmas and Easter, we'd have 500, 600, like, we'd have special events and have big crowds. And then it would go right back to, 250, and then in the summer, 225, 200, 225. And then, during the holidays, it would amp back up. That was just kind of our flow, right? I remember having this conversation with an evangelical pastor friend of mine. And these are the words that I said. I said, what do I have to do? I said, do I need to go hire a prostitute and start doing meth on the side to grow my church? Like, I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. This is what I said. Because I had known of the New Life Church out in Colorado Springs, Ted Haggart story, that he's preaching against homosexuality. He's the head of the evangelical group that's like 40 million members of this group, and he's the president of it.
Yeah.
And he'd had a 2-year relationship with a male prostitute, and he's doing meth.
Yeah.
And he's got a church of 10,000 people at the time. It's all crumbled now. And I was just like, that's what I was referring to, because my friend and I we knew about that story. In fact, I know Ted Haggart. And let me just say this. He's a very nice man in person. I've gone to lunch with him. I've gone to breakfast with him and his wife, Gail. They really are precious people. Take all the religious stuff out. He was just a very kind, fun person to talk to, honestly. And I'm being genuine here. I'm trying to be super nice. And his story's public. So there's a documentary series on him. And he's also in that documentary called Jesus Camp, which is the freakiest, psychoest, weirdest thing you've ever seen.
I don't think I've seen that one yet.
Oh,
I've heard people talk about it.
Kyle. It's available on YouTube.